Wait, can you actually say that again? The recording.
Short-sightedness. So are we able, like as people, to work together for long-term social change, right? So not like immediate revolutions, but like real long-term change, whether it be like climate or social causes and things like that.
I like to add, I'm sorry, I couldn't make it Sunday. Is this the philosophers group or no?
Yeah. And then Sunday will be the reading club. However, that's probably going to be canceled because I don't think anyone's like scheduled to present.
I can't make it Sunday. Once again, I'm going out with friends before, and even it'll be like an all-day thing. But yeah, off the topic of on the topic of this, people can work together. It's very clear. Climate change is a big thing to wrap your head around, especially if you're like an average American. I say a better example is like what was it? What were those things that were cutting into the ozone layer, like halocarbons? And we resolved that problem, so we're definitely capable of doing things on a large scale, global even scale. Because the ozone layer is now repairing itself. Of course, the problem with climate change is it's just so deadened in our economy. It's like often requires beyond selfishness to like abandon fossil fuels. Did everyone get that?
Yeah. Actually, some parts I did not hear, but I think I got the overall meaning.
Yeah, you can look it up. The Montreal Protocols were a series of agreements which outlawed certain chemicals which have been binding into the ozone layer. And that's like a great successful example of like global environmental cooperation. So that's like my counterpoint. How?
Well, the way I feel like that ozone layer was like a more quick, immediate response to it. Because once they saw it was a problem, they were like, we have to deal with this right now or else we're all in danger. Whereas climate change is, when it first started becoming a thing, maybe in like the 90s or something, I'm not sure exactly when we started noticing. We had what seemed to be a very long time to correct our course, rather than like feeling that it was like now or never, because our ozone layer is so important to us that a giant hole in it threatens humanity like right now. Whereas the CO2 marginal increases year over year are only felt slightly. And so each year you're not feeling a big difference, which I think is kind of why Aiden was pointing to the over the long term. Yeah, I think when it comes to that kind of stuff, it has to be really severe that you go into that quality control mode. I mean, let's say at work or in small groups, it's much easier to work together as a group. But when it comes to having a large, world population working towards the same thing, it's much easier for specific individuals to start acting out of that because there's not really a close bond between them. And so when you have a large scale problem like that, and the future isn't guaranteed, we're not guaranteed to be successful in fighting that problem, people will take the better present over a possible future, because in the end, human lifespans are finite. And so why would they spend their time suffering for the future's benefit, I guess? Some people might think that. And so those people will essentially sell out against the overall goal for the rest of humanity to better their own lives.
I like that response, Ahmed. Evan, can I just quickly say I do like that response, and I like that you noted that yes, this is like very incremental, a lot more indolent, and yeah, people I agree, they don't have a sense of what's the word? Responsibility, I guess, right? Where they say, well, it's not like my one difference will make that much of a change, right? And they also think it's like, and no one will ever work together, right? So I guess what my question for you, Ahmed, to follow up is, what do you think is a better alternative to leaving people to their own devices?
I just want to leave a comment on one part of what the great Ahmed said. So what I found interesting, you mentioned the 90s, sort of when it became a thing, I guess, like the popularity, because there was that, like I think you're referring to when the world scientists published or like distributed that warning in the 90s, like the early 90s, about sort of like we need to act now, the current path we're on, or, it's a climate emergency. But interestingly enough, in terms like of how it relates to cooperation, Exxon actually had research done, like private research in the 70s, and they, in their research, they sort of concluded that we have a significant role to play, and that we, are sort of a significant cause of these climate disasters. But that wasn't, I don't know how many years went by that was just like kept privatized and not really, for the public. So it's sort of like, because obviously that would hurt Exxon and oil and gas industries, but like it kind of it ties into this a little bit in terms of the cooperation, but short-sightedness and such.
Thank you for that, Evan. I like that. Does anyone have anything else to say?
I think this topic might be so the answer to kind of this question about whether humanity can cooperate on big issues. I think it depends on a lot of variables. It's very hard to generalize. So I think it's like, obviously I agree with Evan about how humans work together to deal with the ozone hole in the ozone layer. But I think each challenge is different, and the context in which those challenges exist are also different.
I to respond to you, I would say that you said big challenges, right? I think a good example of humanity collaborating to a big challenge was obviously with the COVID vaccines, right? But to sort of reiterate what Ahmed said, that was a very like short-term collaboration, a very immediate threat, and therefore, yes, a high degree of collaboration and effort.
And also, I would add that in the end, we saw people selfishly hoard that vaccine, like how the rich world just took it all.
Yes, I agree. I like that. Thank you, Jason. Did anyone watch the Boondocks episode I sent?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, too.
It's I obviously the challenge there is the social change, right? Like the socioeconomic justice, I guess, right, for the working class and things like that. What do you guys think about collaboration in that sense? Like, are people, for example, wealthier people, ever going to feel the need to help the impoverished, right? Like, I think it's very common for people to talk about it, but in terms of like solving problems like homelessness and people who are like very at the bottom of the barrel, it seems like people, acknowledge it, maybe have a fun time talking about it. But do you guys think that it's possible to actually solve those problems if you just leave individuals to their own devices again, right? Where people say, well, I'm not going to be the single difference, right?
I mean, I think some people do think they can be the single difference, right? Like they'll actively work to do things on their end. I think one of the main problems, though, is that some people realize that they have such a minuscule effect, and really their change and even most of the population's change might not even change our course, because we need the wealthy people who actually take up, who actually have the biggest contribution to some of the biggest problems to change their lifestyle. But I guess the main variable is, for those wealthy people to do that, it's a massive change in lifestyle. It's a massive sacrifice, at least in their perspective. And they're essentially giving up what's making them live a life so much better than others relatively. And I feel like that's where the main problem comes in. Is like, you can have a group effort, but if the sacrifice is too high for some, then they won't do it. So you need, like, and if it's like super extended, then you can't do it. And I think you asked me a question about how would you enforce it. I don't really know if there's a way you can enforce it, unless you can make laws, I guess. But if you make laws like that, it could actually, like, it's not like there isn't a country that's going to be like, oh, so you've made like laws that are really hard for these companies to work. Well, we want that money to improve our society, our country, so we'll provide them with favorable laws, and they can continue to function here, because they get such a great benefit, even while you're taking that sacrifice. Because there's always going to be that option, and so it's really hard to control it, right?
Can I respond, or sorry,
Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off. Okay, I would just
one thing, I gotta go.
okay. Thank you for coming.
See y'all later.
See you.
See you, man. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
If I could respond with to respond to the notion that other countries will say, oh, well, we'll just take the companies here, right? I don't think that those politicians who would bring those companies in actually have their country's their country in interest, right? Like, I think they have their self in interest, right? Because I don't think that they're thinking, oh, if Apple comes and sets up like sweatshops here, that is benefiting our people, but it benefits them as the politician, because they're probably, sliding deals and things like that.
Yeah, but are you ever gonna be able to control that?
No, but I'm just saying, like, I guess I'm just like specifying that I don't think it's politicians with the interests of the people, but it's politicians with the interests of the self, right?
It could be a combination, right? I don't think most politicians wish to simply take all their country's money. It can be a combination, right?
Yeah. To note the episode, did anyone find it really funny, like how Huey was just kind of like, what are you guys doing? And then they're like, oh, we're protesting. And he's like, what? And they're just like holding signs, not really doing anything. How do you guys feel about this mockery of not like real protesting? Like, the sort of like show up to a march, but not actually, just take a bunch of selfies, sort of, not a real protest.
I don't know if I've
I know,
ever
I see it.
seen those.
Sure.
But, yeah, you can go ahead, Evan.
No, please. I think you alphabetical.
Okay.
I saw Olivier try to say something as well, so
I'll just go third.
alphabetical then.
All right. Yeah, so at least the way I see it, I think it's really not that common. I think there will be people in protest who are just going to be in protest, but usually leaders are people who actually care, or at least are trying to show that they care, and for whatever reason that they have. And there will be people in that group who care. I haven't seen any protests that were just protesting for the sake of protesting. Like, usually they did believe, but they also probably didn't think they'd make a change. They were just sending out a message. Like, University of Alberta students do this all the time. They'll hear about some change in the law regarding whatever, and then they'll walk from campus all the way to the legislature and protest and whatever, say that they don't like whatever change, and then that's kind of the end of the day. It doesn't do anything, but at least they're voicing their concerns. I did find it funny. I'll admit I found it funny, because there are definitely people who just show up to a protest just to show that they're showing up to a protest and kind of virtue signal. But
I'll also add, yes, there's the virtue signaling, but also the peaceful protest itself, I guess, is like it's only an effective tool if the person you're protesting to or the company or organization actually cares about what you think.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So like the college kids going to the Alberta legislature, like that might work if the Alberta legislature actually cares. But like for this guy who's like exploiting this little girl and has these sweatshops, obviously he doesn't really care. And then he comes out and he makes the cruelty-free version, which is just like so twisted. Anyways, Evan.
I disagree.
Oh, okay, Jason, would you
I'm
why don't
sorry.
you disagree with me and then we'll move to Evan.
Yeah, though protests can be effective even against those that don't care, especially when you have large enough numbers. Like, I mean, we've seen this thing before, like especially once corporations, like the corporation may not care about the people on the street, but once the people on the street get the attention of government, that's going to be another thing. And we've seen like in the Philippines and the Arab Spring that the people power revolutions, that protest does matter, and if there's a large enough crowd and a lot enough people, you can affect change even if someone doesn't care. And I'd just like to add one more point, which is when we discuss people selfish or not, I think it's clear that there has to be, in the case of immediate reward risk, there has to be a case of immediate reward. And in cases of long-term risk, there has to be long-term and clear rewards. And we don't see that on certain topics like that, climate change. Like it's not clear often what the rewards will be for banning fossil fuels, especially if your economy like the States that has a lot of oil in like swing states and all that.
Like I do like that response, Jason. Thank you. It was very well put together. Evan, would you like to say what you're going to say?
Sorry, I got a little distracted. What was like the context? I'm so sorry.
You were going to say something. So it was Ahmed, you, and then Olivier in my question or prompt about the peaceful protest mockery in Boondocks, right? Like what do you guys think about this mockery of peaceful protesting? Jason, you made a really good point. If you do have large numbers and maybe a lot of people boycotting, obviously the company has to care. And if you just have really large numbers, the government will care and things. But Evan, what do you think about this mockery?
I watched the playback of Capitol Hill riots last year, and like about a year ago, and it kind of reminded me of that, honestly. Like there was like some people who were like CEOs of tech companies that flew on private jets just to like break windows and like sit in chairs. You know what I mean? Like they had like demand don't steal the election, but like that was kind of it. Like they didn't, you know what I mean? I guess this was not a peaceful protest though. This is not a peaceful protest, but people were like,
I guess
people kind of just
I
like
think
going to protest, quote unquote, for fun. You know what I mean? Like, because some of them are just there to like sit in chairs, steal shit, break stuff.
I think people are taking away. They're supposed to take away the word peaceful if you're harming people or people's things, right? Especially if it's like government buildings and people's offices and stuff, right? And they were genuinely like really scaring the politicians inside, right?
Right. Yeah. Definitely not.
Yeah. So that like I don't know. If those weren't, I don't know if they were called riots at all, but I'm sure like if it wasn't a lot of white people, it would be called a riot.
Yeah. Like most of the voice, I guess, in the news. I think it just depends on which news station you're looking at, honestly.
Yeah. Olivier, did you want to respond?
Who?
Yeah. Romain, Olivier.
Yeah, what's up? Yeah, so what I'd like to say about that point is a lot of people brought up some good points earlier, and especially the point about like a lot of people being there. Because originally I was thinking to myself, like I've personally seen like a lot of that performative action kind of thing, and like that's one thing that kind of pisses me off a lot, especially in terms of like social media. So like you'll see like lots of people posting stuff on their stories and not like, I know they don't give a shit, you know what I mean? And it's like, especially to when it's like, okay, somebody gives a shit, quote unquote, but then it's like you post something on your story.
Yeah, like the most, like you're
But
saying, like the most they're willing to do is like make a post, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like once it comes to actually doing like the real hard work, then that's when like most people kind of step out.
Yeah,
You know what I
and
mean?
like the post culture, I guess, is also this short attention span is also captured in the show, right? Where it's like Uncle Ruckus is like shot at, and then they like forget about it within like on the same like on the next day they forget about it and they're like buying lemonade while he's giving his testimony or so.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi is pretty shoddy, or like I don't know what it is, but I kind of missed a little bit of that.
Yeah, I was just saying like you said, or with a short attention span, that's also an idea captured in the show, right? Where like all these people immediately forget about Uncle Ruckus, the moment there's lemonade, and then the protesters immediately forget about the exploitation the moment there's like cruelty-free lemonade, right? Like there's no
That's exactly
accountability, right? They just go, okay, well.
Yeah. Like, for example, take like I haven't been following too much about what's going on with Kanye, but like take Kanye for example, right? Like, and like cancel culture in general, right? Like, you see something you don't like, you cancel it immediately, and then what? How the fuck did these people come into power anyways? You know what I'm saying? How did these opinions get situated anyways? And it's kind of like a band-aid for like a fucking leg wound. You know what I mean?
Olivia, are you still talking? I can't really hear you.
I think he's gone. Wi-Fi.
Hello? Hello?
Yes? I can
Yeah,
hear
we
you.
can hear you.
All right, bet. Did Aiden leave?
No, I just think he's muted.
Oh, okay. I don't know if y'all heard that last part, bro.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Which part?
I don't know the last part, whatever you were finishing.
So pretty much I said that like a lot of the examples that I kind of see right now, or especially with like cancel culture, and band-aid on a leg wound. Like for example, like how did these opinions get started? Like why are we not talking about how it's been festering for a while and like these mentalities are shared by a lot of people? But as soon as you see something like rear its head above like your rosy little sky garden or whatever the fuck,
Since you brought up Kanye, does anyone mind if I just switch the topic really quickly, but a little bit related? Does anyone get really annoyed by people holding Kanye to a high degree of accountability for what he says?
yes,
While he
Yes.
is
I feel like we're all on the
clearly
same page
manic,
with that.
right?
yes,
Like he is clearly manic. And then the thing that
Disappointing.
annoys me the most is I'll see like they bring out these expert, quote, expert psychologists who say, yeah, no, he can't use bipolar as an excuse in this case. And it's like, are you kidding me? Right? Like,
are you dumb?
there's a really Dave Chappelle said recently, right? And I really like that he said this. He said, you guys let people shoot up schools and blame it on mental health, right? Like you guys let people kill people, right? And he said some bad words, and you guys are saying his mental illness is not a good excuse. It's like that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like in one case too, right? Where someone
said that, but I really like that.
where someone is murdering like multiple innocent people, right? Because they're suffering. Sure. Like I get the explanation entirely of mental health, and I see it as a need to point to American culture as something like, to point out the fact that American culture is very much a win-lose or a dog-eat-dog world, right? And it's bullying, and I don't know, people are just not kind to one another. And then, you have this sort of maybe honor culture where people are, taught to defend themselves, and then they have guns so accessible. I don't know. But then you have the alternative of someone who is like, maybe literally delusional and be saying things that they don't have full control over. And then you hold them to like, he loses over $1 billion in a day. Like, all of these people are trying to cancel him, and it's just like, I don't know, it's so crazy.
To kind of add to that, like, I got pissed off too on like how much it took for them to get to the point where they're like, or like what it took for them to cancel Kanye. Because Kanye was also saying some dumb shit about black people, and nobody was saying shit. But then as soon as he started talking about somebody else, that's when people started taking offense.
That was a good point.
Yeah,
By the way, if anyone didn't see that Dave Chappelle bit, right? Like, he doesn't just say, like, he basically says, have I thought that, yeah, the Jews obviously are overrepresented in Hollywood and media? And he's like, yeah, of course I thought it, but I would never say it. And I'm saying this in response to what you said, is like, yeah, Kanye can target black people, but he cannot target like a white group, essentially.
1000%.
Well,
And like, don't get me wrong. Oh, sorry.
also he's a bit more licensed because he himself is black. So I think that's part of the issue. Had he gone out after another like minority of color, I think there would have been more outrage. Right?
I see what you're saying. Like, if he attacked Indian people or
Asians,
Muslim people.
or Asians. Like, I mean, there's a lot of racism back in LA in 1992 during the, like, a lot of hatred between Koreans and African Americans in LA, and that was like not tolerated. So I think just like people have like, who are like Jewish, have a lot of leeway to make like types of jokes that no one else would make. Or like how a lot of gay people can joke in a way that straight people would never be allowed to. I think he has a bit more leeway because he's the same race. And I think really what came to people's mind when he said something stupid like slavery was a choice was, self-loathing, like more about his actual ways.
I'd like to add to that as well. In terms of, so one of my friends brought this point up when we were talking about Kanye, and he said that like a lot of the stuff that people were letting slide, especially like black people and people that were kind of just looking at this and being like, oh, he's black, it's okay, he can say that. It's a lot of internalized racism. Because at the end of the day, like, you can make jokes and shit, and like I understand jokes, but there's a difference between a joke and saying something absolutely dumb. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think I have to go now. Hello, did anyone get that?
Yes, thank you, Jason, for coming.
I believe this meeting is scheduled till 2, though, right?
We'll stick around until we finish. So,
Okay.
Did you want to come back or something, or?
No, I think I just have to leave. It's been a good 40 minutes. Enjoyed it.
Okay.
Well, goodbye.
Yes, thank you, Jason. I also didn't know about the Korean and black feud, so I've never heard about that. Have you guys heard about that?
No, that's very interesting though.
Yeah, I've never heard about that.
Did he say in LA?
Yeah, he said in LA.
Interesting. And when did he say, the 90s?
I think so, yeah.
No, I haven't heard about that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that gets like erased from big cities because they don't want, you know what I mean? Like, they don't really want attention on having like a bad stuff that'll be seen as bad.
Yeah, I agree with what Jason's saying though, is that, maybe people give him a lot of leeway because he's black and they're just like letting him talk about his own group. But anyways.
I mean, I feel like say there was like a Jewish celebrity who started talking about like Jews, though, like, I feel like I get what Olivia's saying. Like they probably would get more attention. You know what I mean? But yeah, I feel like there's like someone's in the middle there between that, because like at the same time, yeah, he's black. He's talking about black people, so he doesn't like get as much attention maybe if he was talking about like some other minority.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think what else. What does anyone like? I don't know. I thought it'd be really fun to make this this week about, you know, kind of based off of that Boondocks episode. How did you guys feel about the ending with the jackets and the winter? Did that hit anyone? That to me, I thought that was really genius.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, he's technically the only one prepared. But I mean, I think the way it struck me was that like the majority of people aren't going to be prepared. And so while you're prepared, you'll probably lose a lot, right? Like in the heat, he was wearing a jacket. That was his sacrifice, right? Like he was wearing that jacket the entire time. And then it was only for like the small moment at the end that it was actually useful.
Yeah. That sounded very much like I appreciate your response to that. To me, like it exactly captured that idea of short-sightedness, right? Because you see the newspaper and it says it's the hottest time it's ever been in February, right? So like of course the cold is coming back, right? And everyone's like shocked that he's the one wearing a jacket. And then similarly, like we're talking about the short attention span with the shooting, with the child exploitation, like right, all throughout the whole episode, it's Huey saying, you know, this is a social cause that needs to be addressed, right? And obviously, I think that the writers of Boondocks are socialists, right? Like they really incorporate those themes into their show, right? And you know, the thing that the socialists fear so much is rising income inequality, rising inequality of power structures, such that you'll get a hyper concentration in the hands of few, and you'll get like this oligarchy and an authoritarian state. It's kind of like the opposite fear of what the conservatives have with the Orwellian nightmare, right? Where things will be concentrated where power will be concentrated in the hands of the state, right? How do you guys feel about that idea that you know, Huey is, I guess, trying to address, and then everyone says, well, I need to go about my day to day. I don't have time to be concerned about whatever future dystopian, you know, he's concerned about.
I feel like that's the normal human response.
Yeah, I guess like focus on your immediate problems.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
I mean like because you actually have to sacrifice like the enjoyment of your life for someone else who you don't know, who you might not really have a connection to, and hope that your sacrifice is actually going to have any benefit to them. It's like pretty abstract, right? Like it's like you have to trust it, and you have to trust that it'll be worth it. And so it's like this weird thing where you're like, is it going to be worth it? Well, I'm going to be much more satisfied if I do this right now. And you know, like the whole pony thing, right? It was like a carrot on the stick, but like she really wanted that pony. And so is she going to be as happy without the pony or with the pony? Right?
Yeah. Like the moment she made the deal, I was like, oh no, like she's going to sell enough lemons to get this like cheap pony within like a couple days, right? Like, anyways, it reminds me, I was going to say that Huey's effort to save her reminds me a lot of Plato's allegory of the cave. Are you guys familiar with this story? So basically the story goes that, you know, imagine that like truth is represented by light, right? And the state of the world and how most people live is within a cave, right? And so the light they see are ultimately, well, in this story, it's the light comes from a fire within the cave, right? So it's not even a real source of truth. But the people are turning their backs to the fire. They don't know the fire is there, and they've always their whole life been fixated on this wall. And then the fire shines light onto the wall, and people, behind them put these puppets up and cast shadows onto the wall, right? And so this is their understanding of a bird, democracy, like every concept they know is really just a shadow. So it's not even a real version of the thing, right? They don't really understand the thing itself. Right. And it's only once they turn around do they realize that all of these things that they had conceptualized are really just a bunch of puppets. So they're not real. But once you break free of those chains, right, and you start to explore the cave and you head towards the light, first of all, you're blinded by it, right? Like it is shocking, right, to approach the truth, and it is uncomfortable. And then you get out there into the real world and you see real trees and real animals and real nature and maybe civilization, the whole thing. You see every concept, and it's like vastly different, and now it's covered in color and it's actually bright, and it's what it really is. And what Plato says is, what will happen if these people who escaped the cave go back to rescue others, right? Others who never left, others who never removed their eyes from the wall. They will come back and they'll tell the people who are fixated on the wall, and they'll say, oh, like you need to come with me. I will show you the truth. This is not the truth. He says that those people who you try to save will try to kill you, right? They will reject you. They will be fiercely angered with you for trying to question what they understand to be the truth, the comfortable truth.
I really like this. I never even heard this.
Yeah, it's a beautiful little story, and the fact that it's held true for thousands of years is just like amazing, right? Because we know this today, that if you question people's comfortable approach to life, where they say, oh, like this is how the world works, and this is my understanding that it's good, and you're just like, well, it's not good, and it's broken, and it's evil in this and that way, they will, they might become offended, they might call you crazy, they might think you're just this I don't know, whatever. And if you question their values, right, their comfortable values that they grew up with, they will get very offended, right? Anyone want to respond? And I'm saying, like, that's what came to mind with, the little girl basically saying, oh, I'm trying to get a pony, leave me alone, stop focusing on the negative, whatever. Like, she's rejecting Huey, even though he's the one trying to save her. And I think it's so powerful that, in the real world, people are trying to save groups, and they may get rejected by the group, and the group says, I'm fine, leave me alone. This is working for me. Let me chase my goal. Let me do my thing, my comfortable thing that I've been doing, that's within the box kind of thinking. And there's actually an R. Kelly episode. Has anyone watched the R. Kelly episode? A very similar thing happens.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the 14-year-old girl is like, oh, I didn't move. I actually wanted him to pee on me, right? And Huey's trying to save her, and even Tom Dubois is trying to save her, and she rejects their attempt to save. And I mean, like this goes to so many agents of change, whether it be change for the good or bad, like, whether it be a Christian trying to convert someone, or a Muslim maybe trying to convert someone, or a socialist trying to recruit people, like people who are trying to actually change for things, or even a conservative trying to change people who are actually passionate and have actually thought about a topic, and therefore probably have much better views on it than people who just take it complacently. Like they're met with a lot of fire in response to attempts to save them. Does anyone want to respond?
I'd say I agree, and it's almost like, I don't know, it seems like the basic, like, prophets, like prophetic stories, they all seem to have that same issue, right? That resistance from the group as they essentially save them. yeah, that's it.
I would like you to elaborate on that because I feel like you'll know more about it than me. The one that comes to mind for me is Moses, right?
Mhm.
Where the truth is revealed to him, the instructions are revealed to him, and he himself wants to reject it, right? So that's, I think, often the first rejection in, biblical or Abrahamic stories are the first rejection is often from the one who receives it, and then maybe the people. But I know my understanding is a lot of these sort of heroes were initially terrified of the mission given to them, right? Like, my understanding is like Moses was absolutely terrified to go to the Pharaoh and tell him to, let them go, right? Even though we think that he was like yelling at the Pharaoh. I'm pretty sure it's believed that he actually stuttered and was like trembling and was terrified, right? Because he didn't want to be killed. Can you give examples? Because I'm not really familiar with the idea of the people rejecting the prophesied messages.
Well, Abraham was when he gave the message after he asked for proof from God that he is the creator of life and death. After he found that out, which he initially was very skeptical of, he went to tell the people who were idol worshippers, pagans, and they actually tried to burn him in a fire. So that's the first one where they tried to kill him. You can think of Jesus. Jesus was also staunchly opposed by the current Jewish population during that time. In fact, they wanted to kill him. Like, they were very openly wanting to kill him, even though we don't know of any harm that he was actually doing other than trying to save them and bring them back to the path that was, I guess, correct. You can talk about the Prophet Muhammad, who was essentially, like, even at a small group, they were constantly being hunted for a very long time. I mean, it's kind of one of the miracles that they even survived, because there was such a small group of them and such a large population out to get them. I mean, that's just a few. You can think of all the other prophets, especially during the Jewish period. A lot of them were killed because they were telling people that they were no longer following the scriptures as they should be, and they were sent as reminders, but they were killed. Those are just like a few examples, I guess. I'm not gonna bore you, but yeah, like it seems like a very common theme.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, I think even like in personal life, like I know certain classes that I take, especially the humanities classes, there's like a newfound truth in a lot of them, and like a lot of them, I know my initial reaction is kind of like I get defensive, right? For example, like my men and masculinities class, excuse me, I find out a lot of information in the class that originally, like, a lot of the times I tense up, right, or I get very defensive towards it, and I start to kind of reject the ideas, and I'm like, no, it can't be this way, or something, and then I have to allow myself to kind of take a deep breath and really let myself process it and come to terms with it and think about it and mull it over.
Olivier, I'm loving this. Can you give me an example? Or examples?
Yeah.
Can I quickly say I highly agree. Like I was like that a lot in my first 2 years of university, where it was like everything that made me uncomfortable, right? In those regards, like I was very like passionately trying to refute, which was a really good approach instead of just accepting it. Like trying to passionately go against it is really good. And even if you come to terms where you like slightly disagree or whatever, like that's fine as long as you've got like a logical reason to do so, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyways,
like I think one of the examples, I have to leave after this actually, but one of the examples recently was I was reading an article where pretty much the entire thing I was reading, I was like, I don't like this. I don't like how they're portraying masculinity. Basically, it seemed like the article was saying that masculinity as a whole is just bad, and there's no such thing as as like basically like a positive type of masculinity, or like or different things like this. And I was pretty much like rejecting the article the entire time. I was like, how can this be so if I personally am feeling this way, or have these views towards this, or I'm actively trying to do this, or whatever. And then I still don't know where I stand in terms of it, but I think that by the end of the article, and throughout, I was like trying to just let myself be like, Olivier, take a step back, just read it. You don't have to accept or reject right now, and you can kind of just take it in and then think about it. And I think that's still the process that I'm going through with a lot of things in life.
Yeah, I like the approach of trying to like actively listen. I will say that does sound like really extreme, like whatever that author was saying. Like I mean, now I'm sounding like a cave. I'm sounding like a cave person, but it's hard not to be like immediately reject that, because it does sound pretty crazy. But I've noticed a lot in social topics, things do sound crazy, right? Like they often sound crazy. And you often just need to give them a chance and see what you think about particular topics without strawmanning them. So,
Olivier, can you send that?
Yeah, for sure. Also, I got a piece, so take care. See you,
man.
See you,
Nice
man. Thanks
seeing
for
you,
coming.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, see ya.
Evan,
do you watch Boondocks?
Evan, this should not be posted, hey?
Really? I feel like there's been really good stuff. Like, I can at least crop the cave stuff and stuff like that, just make it into a short.
Well, the reason is because I know, like Ahmed noted earlier in like the first time we met, where he said he would be uncomfortable, expressing his views if they were to be posted online, right? So I think it's important not to post these, so that way people are comfortable saying what they feel.
Okay. But in isolation, certain things like the cave story, or even Olivier talking about.
Yeah, if you want to post the cave story, I think that's a great idea. Like you can post anything I say. I'm comfortable with my ideas being publicized.
Yeah. But cool. I'll ask for permission, but there's a few things that were said that I really like.
If you want to take shorts, I'm okay with that. But yeah, if it's a short of something like Jason said, make sure you send me the short and I can send it to Jason and ask him if it's okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Or you
whatever.
Can contact. I can contact him directly.
Yeah, like if there's anything you want to pull out, let me know. Okay. Evan, you were gonna say something to.
Yeah, Ahmed, do you watch the Boondocks? Do you like the Boondocks, or like not really?
I haven't really watched it. I've seen a lot of clips, but I haven't actually watched it.
It's one of my favorite shows of all time. Also, question for you, just like living in Alberta.
Mm.
Have you lived in other provinces or just Alberta?
Yeah, just Alberta.
But you spent time in other provinces?
Yeah.
Okay, so compared to those other provinces, do you find in Alberta, I don't know if it's just the people that I meet, but like, do you find people are very quick to try to like flex, what they have, how much they make, they're like material goods, You find or could just be the people I'm around.
I haven't personally found that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think it depends on the circles, right?
There's people I'm meeting.
If you're hanging out with downtown Edmonton residents who work in downtown and whatever offices there, I feel like those are much more likely to do that, especially if they're business focused and they need connections and whatnot, and they need to show their success. That's probably a more commonplace, and that probably happens everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like day-to-day normal people, I'd say Alberta's like the least of the ones kind of showing that